We knew it was a project. It was in its almost original state, which had a lot of charm at the time, and we could really see what the potential was. We found architects that we wanted to work with almost immediately, and we had to get the building plans approved, which we did 2 days before the city shut down for COVID. So the original charm kind of wore off. You know, having a yellow and green checkerboard floor is one thing, having an original aluminum bar is another thing. But the good thing was the house always had such a great energy about it. And the benefit of living in a house for a longer time than you think when you're undertaking a renovation is you really see how you use the space. The aesthetic we were going for was very clean, but on the other hand, you don't want to go too far. We really wanted to make sure that we listened to what the house had provided in the past, but what we wanted to provide to the house in the future. We worked with unique store fixtures to do the kitchen for us, and so we chose this beautiful light wood. The other thing that you'll see is an absence of hardware in this kitchen. I didn't want a lot of visual noise. The way that we pull out any of the drawers, it's all notched out. Everything is soft close, so that we didn't have to have any different material being introduced on the millwork. We wanted to make sure that we had great flow, but we actually like having separate spaces. This is the one space actually that we completely opened up. I like to cook actively when people are here. So we did want to have this open space where we can fit up to 12 people, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that it still kept a really nice aesthetic. So that's why we built up this wall of the island. So it stands up about 6 inches higher than the counter, so that when you're sitting there as a guest, if there's anything on the counter here, you don't see it, right? So that was a way to gain separation without having a completely separate room, without having a wall. And then of course, like the Caesarstone, I mean, is so beautiful to look at that it serves as its own design element. We also extended it to the kitchen table. So the table bases are actually mooey. It's a super long table. It's essentially the size of a full slab. It's incredibly durable. If I want to have placemats for a decor element, great, but you don't have to. Wipes up clean, and it just fits in so beautifully. You can see how all the wood tones relate to each other, but you don't have to stick with one wood tone in one room. Just because you have light floors doesn't mean you can have darker furniture, doesn't mean you can have a mid-tone in the light fixture. We have very new things with vintage finds as well. So these chairs are original and we had them recovered. And I did specifically want the ones with the darker wood to ground the space a little bit. I know Misha Corvette at Hollis Morris. All their lighting has this organic kind of feel to it. And I had always coveted, this is called the Willow. When the Willow lights up, it's just so beautiful to have people around this table and just isolate the lighting. That's the other thing. You really have to learn about your lighting. This is isolated from anything else in the ceiling. You know, the task lighting is isolated. So you want to be able to have everything on at once or choose 1 to 2 to 3 things at any particular time. On the ceiling, you can see this is a plaster paint in a bit of a gray tone. And when you look at the ceiling, the way that the application is, it changes in different light, and it does give this sort of cloud effect. The other thing that we did knock out the back from end to end, and the Pella doors and the windows that we have, I mean, spectacular. Whether you're in this room and bringing in all the light, they also bring in such a great architectural feature to the house. I love Italy, and you know, one of the things that you see in the architecture is rooms really defined by their doorways and by the door jambs, and a lot of times they're wrapped in marble. And I thought, wow, why don't we try and use Caesarstone in a way that I've never had seen before? And so that's what it is. So this detail archway of these 2 rooms that flow so linearly, one right into the other, they're both wrapped in quartz. Marble does tend to, you know, you get fingerprints over time, it can just chip and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that for rooms that had such high traffic, that it was something super durable while getting the same kind of effect. The living room is actually one of the rooms that probably stayed mostly the same. Painted it out, brought in the same trimless pot lights and the same ceiling treatment. So again, like this floor totally relates in its flow. The one thing we did was we rebuilt the fireplace. It was an old wood fireplace, and as much as I think we all have a feeling of romance around wood fireplaces, the remediation that it would have to take for the chimney alone was a little bit more than we thought was worth it. So we converted it to gas. We did listen to the house where I was saying before, that's where there was some rounding. And you'll see in the mantle, it rounds out the fireplace. And then we used what I keep on calling is a pretty bossy marble. I wanted something that had a little bit of loudness to it to make a bit of a statement. And then with our architects who did this entire house with us, Odami, they designed a fireplace treatment with fluting that really gives it a beautiful, beautiful effect. One of the great things that Odami did was really listen to the symmetry of the house, and just where it was a little bit off, completely fixed it. So not only did we line up the doorways with the door jambs in it, but when you're sitting in the living room, it is just a straight linear shot to the backyard. And when you're standing here, I'm looking straight at our living room and just everything that's going on in there as well. We gave up a bathroom that had a stand-up shower in it, and we relocated it to a powder room. I think for purposes of having guests over, a ground floor powder room is pretty essential these days. We did a great bottle green Zellige tile from floor to ceiling, like wrapped the entire room in it. And then you can see that we totally went in a completely different direction and have an antique Venetian mirror over the sink. You want to call it a labor of love. There are certainly those moments during those days where you're not so in love with it anymore and you think, oh, should we have just torn it down? But now that we see it, it's one thing to look at the before and afters, which is like an incredible transformation, but you wouldn't be able to tell the photographs from the renders because it just stayed so true to what we all wanted the vision to be.